Jake Paul's boxing career has always been a mix of controversy and spectacle. But when he called out Mike Tyson, even the wildest of fans was left scratching their heads. Now, Joe Rogan, never one to hold back, didn't just criticize the move. He exposed why it might be the biggest mistake in Jake's career. Now, could this be the moment that Jake Paul finally gets canceled for good?
That Jake Paul would survive against the Mike Tyson that beat Marvis Frazier.
On one hand, Rogan sees the undeniable impact that Jake Paul has had on the sport of boxing. I mean, let's be real. Jake Paul's journey in the boxing world has been anything but ordinary. He's not your typical fighter who worked his way up through amateur ranks. Instead, he's this social media sensation YouTube kid who decided to jump into the ring and start taking down opponents. Rogan appreciates how Jake's managed to bring a whole new audience to boxing, especially younger fans who might not have had cared about the sport otherwise. It's almost like Jake's turned boxing into must-see TV for a generation that's more into YouTube and TikTok than ESPN. But here's where things get tricky. Rogan can't help but raise an eyebrow at some of Jake's decisions. He's ambitious, no doubt about it, but sometimes it feels like Jake's ambitions are getting a little out of hand. Rogan has talked about how Jake's been smart in picking his fights, choosing opponents who's big names but not necessarily in their prime anymore. And that's worked for Jake up to a point. But when Jake started talking about fighting Mike Tyson, Rogan couldn't hold back his concerns. Look, we all know that Mike Tyson ain't just any former boxer, right? The guy's a living legend, a guy who dominated the sport in a way few others could or will. And sure, Tyson's not in his prime anymore. I mean, the guy's 57 years old, but he's still Mike freaking Tyson. When Jake Paul called him out, it wasn't just another headline-grabbing move. It felt like Jake was stepping into territory where he might not belong. Now, Rogan made it clear that this is a risky move, and not just because Tyson could still knock out a younger fighter.
But if that Mike Tyson from Marvis Frazier fought Jake Paul's dead. He's dead.
Beating up a 57-year-old legend doesn't earn you respect. It makes you look like a bully who's picking on somebody who should be enjoying retirement. On the flip side, if Jake loses, and let's be real, that's a real possibility when you up against somebody with Mike Tyson's power, then his career could take a serious hit. People might start seeing Jake as all talk, a guy who's good at hyping up fights but can't back it up when it really matters. When Jake Paul decided to call out Mike Tyson, it wasn't just fans who was felt shaking their heads, man. A lot of people in the boxing community, including former pro boxers and MMA stars, saw this as a blatant disrespect to one of the sport's greatest legends. Look, y'all gotta understand, Mike Tyson ain't just another name in the history books. He's a symbol of boxing's golden era, a fighter who, even in his later years, commands respect from everybody who knows the sport. So when Jake, a 27-year-old YouTube kid with a handful of fights against older people under his belt, decided to challenge a 57-year-old Mike Tyson, well, it ain't no surprise that people are outraged, as we can see here.
That's in there. There's a dark chamber in his mind that he can open up.
Yeah.
And I think he's got it open. The question is, can his body move along with it?
For a lot of these fighters and fans, the idea that Jake Paul, a guy who started his career on YouTube, could think he's worthy of stepping into the ring with someone like Mike Tyson feels like a slap in the face. Now they see it as a sign of how far things have fallen, where respect for the legends who built the sport seems to be fading. See, it ain't just about the age difference, though that's a pretty big part of it. It's also about the principle of the matter. Now, Tyson has done it all, seen it all, and he's earned the right to be remembered as the ferocious champion that he was, not as some stepping stone in Jake Paul's quest for relevance. And let's be real, the outrage isn't just about protecting Tyson either. It's about preserving the dignity of the sport itself. Now, boxing has always been about honor, about facing opponents who are at your level or above, testing your mettle against the best. When Jake challenges someone like Mike Tyson, who's decades past his prime, it just feels to many like he's cheapening the sport, turning it into a circus act instead of a true contest of skill and strength. But what else could you expect from some kid from YouTube who likes beating up old people, right? Alright, look, here's a real kicker, right? This fight is a lose-lose situation for Jake Paul, and almost everybody in the boxing world sees it this way. I mean, think about it. Jake somehow wins this fight, what's he actually gain? Sure, he can say he beat Mike Tyson, but beating a 57-year-old version of Tyson isn't going to win him any respect. In fact, it might just do the exact opposite. People could see him as the guy who took advantage of an aging legend, and that's not the kind of reputation you want in this kind of a sport. And if Jake loses, well, that could be even worse. Getting knocked out by a fighter in their late 50s ain't exactly a badge of honor, no matter how legendary that fighter is. It would likely be the end of the road for Jake's boxing career, or at least the beginning of the end. The narrative would shift from Jake Paul being a brash young upstart to Jake Paul being a guy who got in way over his head. He would lose whatever little credibility he's built up, and the boxing community would probably never let him live it down neither. Look, man, Mike Tyson, even at 57, ain't the kind of man to back down from any kind of challenge. When Jake Paul called him out, Tyson didn't just brush it off or laugh it away. He took it seriously. And why wouldn't a man? Tyson's always been about proving himself in the ring, no matter who's standing on the other side of it. Yeah, he's made it clear that he's more than ready to teach Jake Paul a hard lesson, one that the young fighter might not walk away from so easily. Tyson hasn't been shy about criticizing Jake neither. He's openly talked about how Jake doesn't seem to be in the best shape for this fight. Now, Tyson's thrown some pretty harsh words, calling Jake out for being fat and funky, and questioning whether he's even started training properly. For Tyson, it's not just about stepping into the ring. It's about being ready to go to war, and he doesn't seem to think Jake's anywhere near prepared for what's coming. Tyson's confidence ain't just bravado. It's backed up by decades of experience and a reputation as one of the most feared men in boxing history. See, he genuinely believes that he can knock Jake out, and honestly, a lot of people agree right there with him. If y'all seen any of Tyson's recent training footage, you know that man is still an absolute beast. It's almost surreal watching him move with that kind of speed and power that would be impressive for somebody half his age, let alone somebody pushing 60. Fans have been going wild over these videos, with many of them even more excited than ever about the possibility of seeing Tyson back in the ring. There's this electric anticipation in the air, with people wondering if Tyson could really pull off another big win, despite his age. And let's face it, there's a part of all of us that loves the idea of a comeback story, especially when it involves a legend like Iron Mike Tyson. The reaction from the boxing world to this whole situation has been nothing short of intense. Jake Paul has always been a polarizing figure, but this time he might have pushed things too far. A significant portion of the boxing community has turned against him, seeing his challenge to Tyson as not just ill-advised, but also downright disrespectful. Take Bernard Hopkins, for example. He's been pretty vocal about his disapproval, saying that Mike Tyson shouldn't even entertain the idea of fighting Jake Paul. For Hopkins, it's not just a mismatch in terms of age and experience. It's about protecting Tyson's legacy. He's worried that by getting into the ring with someone like Jake, Tyson could tarnish his reputation, something that took decades for him to build. On the other hand, y'all got somebody like Sugar Shane Mosley, who sees things a bit differently. Now, Mosley doesn't necessarily think that Jake stands a chance against Tyson, but he doesn't view the fight as a total disaster either. For him, this is just another chapter in Tyson's long and storied career, and win or lose, Tyson's legacy is already set in stone. Mosley's more focused on how Jake Paul handles himself in the ring, and whether this fight could actually be a learning experience for the younger fighter. So what y'all think? Who's gonna win this fight? Make sure y'all sound off in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video.